Welcome back. This week we're going to go back to the streamers. It's been a while since we've done a bigger pattern, so we're going to go real big. We're going to go with Kelly Galloup's Flanked Back Creature. I have grown very, very fond of this pattern over the last couple of years. It has hung some really big fish for me. I don't know what, who knows. It just hunts. It does. I mean, there's nothing else really to say about it. I'll speak through this one as I go through it more. But to start, we're going to go with an MFC 7050 size 4. You can do, there's a couple of different directions you can go on this one. I'm going to do this one, it's a triple, so we're going to have 3 hooks in it. You can go 4-4-2, which is what I'm going to do here. You can go 4-2-1, 6-4-2, 6-6-4, whatever you want to do, however you want to do this, depending on the size that you want to be fishing. I would just say that at a minimum, go 1 hook size up for your front hook. That would be the suggestion that I would have on that one. At least 1 hook size. If you want, do 2. Maybe you could get away with a 4-4-1 on this. But it's enough of that. Experiment around with it, play with it however you want the fly to wind up looking. That's entirely up to you. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm just going to palmer 2 plumes of white Marabou in the back. I'm going to find 2 that are going to palmer well for me. That one looks pretty good. And that one looks pretty good. Get that off to the side. Let's see here. I think I want this one first. Yeah, that one's a little more rigid than I would like, so I'm going to put that one in first. I'll get some feel on the back side. So you can see here I have this started about at my halfway point on this hook. I'm going to take this feather in, tie it in by the stem, make sure that I've got a little bit left there. Everything looks good. I'm going to half hitch that. And get that in the cradle. Find my hackle pliers. I'm going to come up to the top here and I'm just going to pinch this one little section. Try. There we go. I'm starting to learn on this filming thing where I can have my hand and where I can't, so I'm not blocking stuff. It's taken me a while, but we're getting there. Alright. Not worrying much about spacing. The only thing we really want to do is get that plume spread out. That way we have a little base layer to work with. Or we have the start of our feather to work with there. Now you're going to see that that's going to be extremely long as that peels back. But there we have it right there. Now, this is another option right here. I haven't done this in the past on this pattern, but I felt like it could use just a little bit more flash. So I'm going to take a couple of strands of silver holographic. Let's say 3 strands. Come here. 3 strands of silver holographic Flashabou, and I'm just going to run this down. I'll wet my fingers here so it cooperates for me a little bit. I'm just going to run this down here about 3/4 of the way back. Throw that on one side, bring this around on the opposite. Find right about where it's going to be even and give that a quick trim. Just a little bit of extra flash throughout the pattern. You'll see as we go that there's plenty of flash throughout, so It's not absolutely necessary, but a little bit extra never hurts. Alright, same thing, we're going to go one more plume here. You can see when I tie this in, I already have it set in the direction that I want it. And I have that little bit of extra stem that's going to give me something to, it's going to give me some leeway when I go tying this in, because you always want your, when you're Palmer and Marabou, you always want your package side facing the front of the hook. So this natural curve that you'll see here, let me find a good one. This natural curve that you've got right here, see how it's going back like that? When you tie this in, you always want this going that direction. You always want your curve facing this way when you tie it in, so that way when you wrap, all of your material is naturally going to go toward the back. So, I did half hitch that, okay. I was wondering. So, to ensure that it is going to stay that way, I leave myself a little bit of extra. You can see how I have that little bit there that's going to give me a little bit of play. If it starts wanting to fight me a little bit, which some of them will, I mean, some of those shafts wind up a little bit twisted. Some of them just aren't the best. They can wind up being a little difficult to work with, but that gives you a little bit of leeway right there, and you're able to manipulate that feather if need be. That one just cooperated all the way around, so no issues there. Gonna get that out of my way, give that a quick trim there, get my hackle pliers out, and then I'm just gonna clean this up with a few thread wraps. Just a little bit back, maybe 1/8 of an inch back, just to lay that stuff down a little bit. Now what I'm going to go with is the Mallard Flanks here. I'm just going to get a handful of these out, set them off to the side. I'll pick through those as I go through. This is essentially the articulated Boogie Man, or the triple Boogie Man, I should say. And it changes some stuff up on the body and everything. Let's see if I like that feather. Not at all. Not at all. The body is the main change that you'll see on this, and it's changed basically from basically from the ice dub and Schloppen to the UV Polar, and then the head changed as well. We'll touch on that once we get to it, if I get to it. If I can ever find a feather that I'm happy with. That one looks pretty good. We're gonna let that one work. We're gonna use that one. Alright, so I'm just gonna trim this off here. I'm gonna lay this feather over the top, and you can see that my stem is going right down the center of my hook. I want to get that tied in, get a couple of just loose thread wraps, give this a look, make sure that it's sitting how I want it. It's not twisted on me or anything. It's going right down the center. Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Not the best, but being that I didn't sort through any of this prior to, it's gonna do. I got my thread wanting to split on me a little bit. There we go. We'll get that one whip finished and out of the way. Everything looks pretty clean right there. You can see that back half. I'm tying at an angle here, and it just seems off to me, but we're looking good. I swear it's my first beer too. That's not the culprit. Now we're gonna go with our articulation wire. I'm jumping the gun here a little bit. We're going to get our wire set in place. Yeah, that's going to bug me. That's going to bug me, but it'll work. Alright, we're going to get our wire set in place here. We're going to set this right through. Just give that a quick kink. And then I'm going to use some, these are just 6/0 glass beads. I'm going to get a couple of these down there so I have some options. Make sure they're not, yep, they're going to be in the way. Get those out of there. I'm going to use 2 beads each on this. Thing's starting to get hung up a little bit. There we go. Get the 2 beads on there, get that out of the vise. And we'll bring our second size 4 in. Feel that secure. I want to get this tied in. That looks good. Just get a quick thread base down. Get our gel spun thrown in there. Get the articulation wire started. Just loose wraps at first till I get the distance that I want on this connection there. I'm going to bring this through. Make sure that I'm happy with how that's sitting. Everything looks good. Bring this wire up to the front. Double everything over if I can get a hold of it there. There we go. Double everything over, set that in place. Same with the opposite side. And then before I get this in the cradle, I'm just going to bring this around one time, get a couple of good solid wraps there. Everything looks good to me. Everything's clean. We've got a little bit of extra distance than what I would typically have there. And that's just to give that back end just a little bit more kick. There's probably 1.5 bead width right there. And like I said, that just gives that back end a little bit more kick. It exaggerates it some. What we're going to do next is I'm going to take just a white Marabou plume here, and this is what I'm going to use for a skirt. Clear that stuff out of the way. Get a little piece here. I'm going to bust off those tips, and I'm going to run that right back into the white Marabou from the back hook. Couple of wraps. Everything's looking good. Same thing on the opposite side. Just bust that piece off. There we go. That's looking good. Make sure that you're coming into that white Marabou from the back. That way it gives that a nice clean skirt. It gives you good cover. Let me get that there. And it doesn't look like it's a disjointed fly going from one point to the next. Now, like I was saying before with the body material, and this one's going to use up the last of this. This is just silver UV. It really has a lot of reflective property to it. I don't know. I've really incorporated a lot of UV into a lot of my own patterns. I don't know why. It's just something that I had gravitated to, and I really like the way that it looks in the water. It makes the body really quick to tie as well. So we're just gonna go one in front of the next, all the way up to the front. Nothing too complicated about this section here. Leave yourself a little bit of room there. I think I want to get one more wrap. Let me see. Yeah, I'll do that one last wrap there. And then I'll get that out of my way. Clean that up. Get a couple of clean wraps right in the front there. Just to make sure all that UV is just going to be going toward the back. If it's not going to cooperate like that one, get rid of it. We're back to the flanks on this one. I'm really getting down toward the end of this pack to where, well, it's not really a pack. I got 20 plucks a while back. And it's just exceptionally good quality for these articulated streamers, but I'm getting down toward the end of it. I'm gonna have to hit my duck hunting buddy up to get some more here this fall. Let's see here. We're going right down the center, just like the other one. Right down through there. Everything looks clean. Those wraps were nice and loose to start. Now that I have everything how I want it, I can really wrench down on those and get some really solid wraps on there. Just be careful when you do wrap these. If you are really heavy-handed on the vise like I am, you can pull so hard that you'll cut right through those stems with that gel spun. I've done it a couple of times, so I'm ever mindful when I'm tying those in to take it easy. But I do want some good solid turns in there. That way I don't want those flank feathers to go flying out on me after a fish or two. I want them to stay on there. So if you want to, you could take a little bit of Zap and touch it up. I'll just show it here real quick. Let me see if I can find my Zap here. If you want, you can take this little bit of Zap and go right on that stem right there. That'll give you a little bit extra assurance. Then you can take your bodkin, just run that through there. Just be really mindful and be careful not to get back into the feather itself. If it winds up going into that feather, it's just going to soak in there, and then it winds up like kind of doing a spider web type thing, and then it just limits all of your articulation or all of your motion that you're getting out of that that feather. A little bit on the stem's not going to hurt you. But if it goes getting back into the actual feather portion itself, that's gonna ruin your fly in a hurry. Now, same thing. Oh, get over here. Take 38 thousandths as always, and I'm going to run 2 more of these blue beads back. Get that out of the vise, and then we're going with the size 2, 70/50. I want to get, once again, a thread base down. Just work my way to the back, work my way back to the front, and then I'm going to put on my lead eyes before I do anything. These are not wanting to come out. There we go. This is a size medium, MFC Sparkle Eyes. You can see, I'll try and get those into the camera really good there. You can see those right there. I mean, it's got this little glitter effect to it. And Kelly first used it on this pattern, at least from what I know, he first used it on this pattern. And ever since I saw it, I honestly loved the way that they looked. And I incorporated, I stole it, I flat out stole it, put it in some of the gray and white Miss Octobers. I just love the way that the eyes look. I don't know what it is, but this pattern first attracted me to these eyes, and I've been using a lot of them ever since. But if you want to go with a straight red, I'm sure that the fish are not going to mind too awful much. So, a couple of clean wraps through there, figure eights, and then around the eyes as always. I'm not going to spend a ton of time covering how to secure those into place. I feel, well, if this is the first video that you watched, then probably would be good of me to slow it down a little bit. So, eyes are on the bottom, that way your hooks are going to be riding on the bottom. And then I'm just going to get a couple of more wraps through here. I'm just going to figure eight this, and then I'm going just around the eyes, not the hook at all. I'm going to pull tight and clean everything up from there. Our eyes are locked into place. Last thing I want to do is just make sure that they're not lopsided, everything's even. Now I'm going to take the back 2 sections, or the back 2 hooks, get my wires running parallel again. That looks pretty good. Get that off to the side. Make sure that I have the distance that I want again. Like I said before, about 1.5 of a bead width. Make sure that everything is running how I want it. Everything looks good. I'm going to advance this up to the front, and then before I go doubling up my wire or peeling my wire back, I just want to get that one catch loop around to secure my articulation wire a little bit better there. Now be mindful when you're tying these that there are 2 hooks back there. If you want, go ahead and go with a shank. I would put the shank on the very back. I wouldn't have it on the front 2 at all. But if you want to run a shank, put a shank on the back. There we go again. Bring this around. Nothing new at all here. Just gives my wire a little bit of extra security. Now, you can go whichever way you feel looks better. You can go with the straight white for a skirt here. I'm going to go with a gray. I feel like it covers a little bit better with that silver UV. White seems to stand out a little bit too much for me. I used to do a lot of white with these, but I'm going to go with the straight gray here. Same thing, just busting those up a little bit. They don't have to be perfect, just enough to where it's going to be able to extend back and get you some coverage going into that center hook's UV polar. Let me get rid of some of that garbage. Take that once again, bust this up a little bit, and run that same distance on the other hook, or on the other side, sorry. Get that into place. Everything's looking clean right there. I got a little bit falling off to the side there. Got that cleaned up though. Back to the UV polar. We're going to tie this in. Take that almost the entire way up to the eyes. We're going to have one more flank to tie in, and then we're going to finish it off with some laser dub for the head. So now we got this. Oh man, did not sit at all how I wanted it to. Having a tough time getting my hand out of the camera view and still getting my material to go where I want, so I'm just going to use the front camera. I'm going to cheat, use the front camera, screw it. You'll get the idea. Not as good a quality though. One of these days I'll upgrade that front camera too. One of these days. Alright. So, we've got everything sitting how we want it. We've got between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch free right there. We're going to throw in our last mallard flank. Let's see here. That one actually is going to work out pretty good. That'll actually work out real good. I didn't like how it was sitting there at first, but fluffed it up a little bit, and I really like the way that it looks. So, make sure it passes the eye test on the fly. Looks pretty solid. I want to get a little bit more here. I want a little bit more length on that one. What I like for these to do is to go into the last flank, and I'll explain that a little bit more here once I get this tied in and secure. I don't like how that stem's sitting. Still riding down the center, everything looks good. I just want that to move over just slightly. There we go. Let me get a couple of solid wraps on that. Now you can see that this is coming right down the center, and like I was explaining as to how I like these flanks to go, I like them to go into the first 1/4 of the last flank that's tied in, so you can see it right there, and it's just running all the way down. It's giving you nice coverage on top. Same thing with this one. This back one's kicked a little bit to the side because of the way I have it in the clamp there, but that middle flank is going back over top of the first quarter of my first flank. So now that everything's secure, everything's in place, I just want a good couple of wraps in there. You can throw the zap on there if you want it. I'm not going to on this one. I like how that one's sitting. Now we're going to form the head on this, which is a straight minnow gray, or silver minnow belly, sorry. I'll get that in the frame there and show you. That's what we're going to be working with. And all we're going to do on this is the same thing that we do on any of these that have, anytime you're working with this laser dub. We're going to get our stacks going right through here. I want one to start out on the top, 1 and 2, pull that down, make sure it's tight. Same thing with the bottom. When you're working with this, make sure that you take your first, when you pull it out of the package, go 1, 2, I usually go with a third right there, and then make sure that this stuff is good and secure. I can grab that in the center, pull on that, and it's not going anywhere. If you go straight from the package, you're going to have loose fibers all over the place, and your head's going to wind up just falling apart on you and be non-existent essentially. So make sure that you get those tied in there, and make sure you take the extra time to work these fibers in properly. 2, and then a third. Same thing, we're just going to advance this the whole way to the front, working around these eyes. When I do these, I used to put entirely too much laser dub on these heads, whether it be the October, a landing strip, this pattern. I would put entirely too much in there. I would try and form everything around the head to fill the gaps and everything. Didn't like the way I hated the way that it looked, honestly. On the vise it was fine. In the water, oh, it was bad. You would wind up having material going all around the eyes. You just have a matted mess. This seems to be the cleanest way that I've found to tie these heads in around a pair of dumbbell eyes. And my beer is probably getting warm because I picked an articulated or a triple to tie while I have a beer, and didn't take any breaks the entire time. I should be applauded for that. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Everything is done on the head right there. There we go. Not too bad, it's not warm, we're good. Now, last thing we're going to do before we finish this fly up is just trim this head. I'm going to brush this stuff out, giving myself, you can see what we have right there. I'm going to brush this out, and then just nice, don't get real aggressive on this, just shape this head. Don't get real aggressive at all. I make that first cut, same thing on the underside. I make that first cut. That's starting to give me the shape that I want right there. If you make that first cut and you have the shape that you want, you're happy with it, leave it alone. You're going to wind up hacking a piece off and it's going to piss you off, and then you wind up throwing the whole fly away and starting over. I have one section right here that I didn't like how it was going. I wanted it to be a little more flat right there. This underneath side looks good to me. I'm leaving it as is. The way that it sits is the way that it's going to get fished. There, I'll give that a spin. You're able to see what we have right there. It's a little bit more flat on that bottom than it is on the top. I've got my flanks going all over the place here. I need to get this under control so you can see the back section here a little bit better. But there we go. We've got that nice flank feather trio right there, running right down the back. And there is Kelly Galloup's flanked back creature. That took longer than I expected it to, but I got to talking a little bit, so it happens. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments on this one, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Thanks as always, and we will catch you on the next fly.